My friends, good day from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The fight goes on. I was looking at Elon Musk's X account, or Twitter as the older folks say, and I get the impression that he seems inclined to reveal a number of things about what happened during the Apollo missions. You know, the problem with the Apollo missions from the perspective of someone like Elon Musk is that it diminishes, it lessens his achievement, the achievement of his company, SpaceX. Why? You've seen those impressive images of those boosters coming back from space and landing. The flame in front, isn't it managed by computer systems that control the orientation of that flame to the millimeter and gently land the booster? You've seen those images, it's impressive. Well, it's not really a technological feat in the sense that NASA did the same or even better back in the 1960s and landed like that. Not on Earth like Elon Musk does. Anyone can do that on Earth. They did it on the moon, and they did it mostly under manual control. They didn't have computers as fast or as powerful as the ones we have today. So, of course, you can imagine, I mean, you know, I'm no better than anyone else. I'm just like millions of people. I told you. Besides, I was criticized, yes, quite vehemently when I said that I believe the story of the Apollo missions. It's practically on the same level as other American plans from that era, Cold War plans, completely twisted stories that they would come up with regularly. Here's another one for you, the Gulf of Tonkin, for example, where it turned out to be a blatant lie, isn't it, from that era? So Operation Northwoods as well. It shows you a system, it shows you a regime that's very focused on extremely Machiavellian plans. Operation Northwoods. Did you know they wanted to carry out attacks, trigger attacks in the United States, blame Cuba? It's been revealed. It's now something that no one will accuse you of being a conspiracy theorist for if you bring it up at a family table. Since it's covered by mainstream media, it even has a Wikipedia page with links and references. It was a general in the army who devised a plan to accuse Cuba of causing attacks in the United States. But those attacks had to be caused, and that involved plane crashes and all that. And actually, you can always say, yes, aldosterone, you're exaggerating. Out of the thousands of generals they have, well, maybe this guy was just a bad apple. Yes, I agree with you. That's a valid argument, except in reality, it's not valid. Why? Because when you look at this story, well, this general submitted his plan to a joint committee, right? So a joint committee under the Pentagon where the top leaders of all the branches sit, right? From the US Navy, the US Air Force, the US Army, and so on. They all sat there, reviewed the plan, and approved it. I get that the guy is one of the hunted, but in that case, he feels it. And they approved it so much that they thought it was credible enough to go to President Kennedy for signature. If he had signed it, the plan would have been set in motion. And by the way, the general who was behind this wasn't punished or reprimanded or anything. No, he continued his career in Europe within NATO. You see, so there's no problem. I'm talking to you about a system at this level, right? I don't need to prove that this system is like that because it's already been demonstrated more than enough. So they lied about this Apollo story, and actually they lied in the same way the Soviets lied about Gagarin. By the way, because look, when there was this space race, today nobody cares about the space race, honestly. But back then, honestly, back then, people were obsessed with the space race and the beginning of the atomic age. Today, not only do we not care about the atom, but we also don't care about that whole space thing. Today, if you bring an astronaut and put him in a university lecture hall, I assure you the hall is half empty. It's not the same anymore, whereas back then they were like deities, they were considered like today, I would say, to give you an idea, like how people see soccer players, for example. Today, it's at that level. They are literally living gods, the gods of space, not the gods of the stadium. So as I was telling you, who was commenting on Gagarin, who was the first man to go into space, to orbit around the Earth, well, the lie was based on the following assumption. It said, anyway, going into space, sending a man into space, making one or two orbits, it's just a matter of months. We're going to get there. but we don't want to miss the record. We don't want to miss being able to say we are the first. So what did they do? The Soviets? Well, the Soviets, they lied. Gagarin didn't go. He's not the first man to have been in orbit. There were other men afterwards who were actually the first, but not him. In any case, he wasn't. Because his story doesn't hold up. I mean, his story, it's true that that's not the point. In my book, We Didn't Walk on the Moon. Gagarin's story isn't, I'm not focusing on it. That's not my goal. But Gagarin, his story doesn't hold up. And once again, there are people who say, yes, aldosterone. He says that people didn't go to the moon. It's not aldosterone who says it. It's not me. It's the official version that says it. Me, I don't work with conspiracy theories or people who believe the earth is flat or things like that. No, I only use the official version. I work with the official version. And when I take the official version and look at it on the table, it doesn't hold up. That's all. The first rule of logic, one of the first rules, is no internal contradictions. So when there are internal contradictions, implausibilities, and so on and so on and so on. And when you have a system that's based on lying, well, that's it. It doesn't go very far. The Soviet lie paid off. Why? Because they didn't lie by much. That means they were about to achieve a feat, but they moved it up by a few months. So they created the Gagarin story, and then they said he was in space. And then, of course, their engineers a few months later or a year or two later finally managed to send people into space. So in this case, the lie is going to be covered up in a way. The problem is the Americans thought the same way. The Americans, they had such a naive view of space at the time. You know, it was like Walt Disney for them. They had the impression that by the year 2000, if you look at the literature from that time, they tell you by 2000, we'll teleport to our workplace, we'll go to work in flying saucers, things like that. So, you know, this idea that, anyway, going to the moon is a matter of a few months, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years at most. So what do? We're going to fake it now, we're going to fake it completely. Anyway, in a few years, it will be done so naturally by us and other nations that at least we can say we were the first. The problem is they lied so big because the Soviets lied on a smaller scale with Gagarin, but they lied on such a huge scale. Here we are 60 years later, applauding SpaceX landers and saying, wow, what an amazing technological achievement. While NASA was doing the same thing, but even more on another planet. So the record in terms of achievements hasn't been broken yet. You see what I mean? So there you go, my friends. We'll see with Trump soon coming to power, and then Elon Musk, who is literally the vice president of the United States de facto. He's basically becoming the right-hand man. So we'll see if Elon Musk might want to start pushing the boss to declassify a little bit. I mean, we're going to get some things declassified because, you know, Elon Musk wants to go to Mars. Why does he want to go to Mars? Why doesn't he go to the moon? Yeah, because basically he was a believer, I think. I think that basically a lot of Americans believed that we went to the moon in the 60s. Our great nation, our motherland, sent humans to the moon quite easily. By the way, let me give you an example. Between Apollo 11 and Apollo 12, not even 4 months passed. In 1969, we sent people to the moon twice. Well, actually, 3, with one that didn't land, Apollo 10. But actually, he says, if we were able to have guys walk on the moon twice in a row in the 60s, in 1969, I mean, today with our technology, we could easily do the same thing on Mars or even farther. The moon is nothing at all. The problem is that as he analyzes his trip to Mars, he realizes there are big problems. And I think those big problems with interplanetary travel make him see the Apollo stories in a new light. Which means, wait a minute, if this problem is so severe when it comes to going to Mars, how did they manage to go to the moon back then? You see what I mean? The more he analyzes the trip to Mars, the more he realizes, did we really make the trip to the moon? If we had done it, we wouldn't be asking ourselves these questions now. You see, I think that's kind of what's going on in his head. There you go. Lies always end up collapsing, my friends. Look at the lie about the Gulf of Tonkin. It took decades. It was taught in schools, in high schools. People just repeated it as it was to get a good grade. In the end, it collapsed. Today, even Wikipedia, even the BBC talks about it, just to show you. There you go, my friends. I'll go now. I won't stay long or it'll take forever to upload via Starlink. Elon Musk's Starlink once again. So thank you for listening to this video up to this point. I recommend you read my book. I know there are a lot of questions that come up every time I talk about this subject, but I recommend you read my book where I address many questions in advance. And then maybe if I have time in 2025, I will write a sequel where I will answer all your questions in an extremely detailed way. Thank you, my friends, for listening up to this point, and I'll see you in the next video.